No one really knew how that was possible.
Were people in ancient times really smarter than we are now?
This case changes our history.
This is Kurtop. Here are 100 past technologies that can't be recreated. The sunken port of Cleopatra. Near Toposiris Magna, west of Alexandria, archaeologists discovered a submerged area showing signs of an ancient harbor. Kathleen Martinez's team, together with marine archaeologist Bob Ballard, describes rows of massive foundations estimated to be over 6 meters high. Cemented blocks, column fragments, storage and transport amphorae, and many anchors from Cleopatra VII's era. Such a set of items usually accompanies a working port, key lines, storage areas, and navigational equipment. In 2022, a 1,227-meter underground tunnel was found here, leading to the Mediterranean Sea, containing ceramics and Ptolemaic period artifacts. The harbor could have supported the city complex, Toposiris Magna Temple, and Cleopatra's fleet during her reign. Dating and the maritime profile of the find suggests this, but test pits, sediment dating, and connecting the structures to the ancient shoreline are still needed. If confirmed, we'll have rare evidence of the coastal network near the Ptolemaic capital, shown in stone, wood, and iron, not just in text. The pyramids, when they were built. The pyramids we see today are far from how they looked when they were first built. Don't believe it? Let's dive into history. Ancient engineers used an astonishing 6.1 million tons of limestone to build the main pyramid of Giza. The largest and oldest of them all, it was constructed by order of Pharaoh Khufu. But what do you think it looked like before? No, not sand brown. It was covered with a shiny layer of limestone, but unfortunately, over time, many of the facing stones were reused. It probably started during the reign of Tutankhamun and continued for many centuries. Add to that the earthquake of 1303 AD, which shook them up a bit. Nowadays, the pyramids still amaze us with their durability. For example, the Pyramid of Khafra has even preserved some of its original casing stones. It looks as if one peak wedges into another. It's amazing. On top of the pyramids, so-called pyramidions were installed, covered with electrum, a shiny mixture of gold and silver. Unfortunately, most of them have been lost over time, but some examples can still be seen in museums. The oldest diamond in the world. Now, I'll tell you again about gemstones, only these are very, very ancient. The story will not just be about a diamond, but about the oldest diamond on Earth, just like in movies or books about treasures. Isn't that right? An international team of scientists discovered this unique stone in Russia at a diamond deposit called Udakhnaya. Here, the very name speaks of great luck for the miners. This tiny diamond measures just 0.3 millimeters, smaller than a pinhead. It has lived a very, very long life, and scientists were able to determine its age using complex methods that sound like real magic. Isotope dating. Scientists explained that the diamond formed deep beneath the Earth at a depth of about 140 kilometers. It was extremely hot, around 900 degrees Celsius, and the pressure was immense, 37,000 times higher than Earth's surface. And the age of the diamond is 3.7 billion years. But the most amazing thing is that this diamond deposit is located 20 kilometers from the Arctic Circle, very close to where polar bears live. In 1955, Soviet geologist Vladimir Shchukin discovered this lucky pipe here, leading to the construction of a city for diamond mining. And in this pipe, huge diamonds were found, one of which was named after the great Russian poet Alexander Pushkin. Evidence of a global catastrophe 12,800 years ago has been discovered. Archaeologists have made incredible discoveries in northern Syria and at the bottom of Lake Assad. They found remains of houses, tools, even food products that are about 12,800 years old. And that's not all. Remains of meteorites and melted glass were found near the discoveries, and similar finds have been made in other countries as well. Interestingly, official history doesn't mention any large-scale meteorite bombardment of Earth. Analysis of these findings suggests that about 12,000 years ago, a huge number of meteorites struck the Earth, covering the Atlantic Ocean, Syria, India, and Antarctica. And all this time, traces of this cosmic storm were hidden in the legends of different peoples and beneath layers of earth, sunken underground cities, tunnels, and traces of civilization. These findings are scattered all over the globe. What is this? A pre-flood settlement of our ancestors? Or did such a super civilization really exist? What technologies might we have lost along with the underwater settlers? Everything points to the fact that in the near future, the world will once again have to rewrite the history of humanity. The Hostage Prince. A Tang-era tomb was discovered 2 kilometers north of ancient Chang'an in Xi'an. The slanted entrance goes down to a depth of about 4.5 meters. The ceiling has a window, and the passage is long, over 10 meters. The main discovery is a bluestone epitaph with 557 characters revealing the name of the buried Prince Sili Kim Yong, born in 747 and died in 794. The text details his time as a hostage and participant in ceremonies and missions at the Tang court. Despite earlier looting, the complex still holds a rich collection. Figurines of guardians, animals, celestial kings, coins, a pagoda-shaped vessel, and many other items. Tang officials organized the funeral, as stated in the epitaph, showing the deceased's recognized status. Another detail is the marriage to a woman from the Wang family of Taiyuan, whose father worked in Yanshi County. Such a union typically strengthens ties between the court and a foreign prince. The hostage system under the Tang worked simply and strictly. The allied state would send representatives of the dynasty to the emperor. They were raised according to Chinese norms, introduced to rituals and service, and in return, loyalty from their house was expected. These individuals served as intermediaries, translators of customs, and facilitators of diplomacy and trade. Kim Yong's tomb is rare physical evidence of how this system worked, not in the chronicle but in a particular biography. Why a hostage? The epitaph directly states that Kim Yong was a prince of Silla, sent to the Tang court to secure an alliance. He lived at the court, took part in ceremonies and missions, and married a woman from the Wang family. A common way to secure loyalty. The funeral was organized by Tang officials. He wasn't a prisoner, but a representative of the ruling house, left with the emperor to guarantee the agreement and act as an intermediary. The Sphinx from Mars. The Sphinx from Mars was discovered in 1976 during archaeological excavations in Egypt. This unique statuette, only 10 centimeters tall, amazed scientists with its strange resemblance to the famous Martian Sphinx, depicted in photographs taken by the Viking 1 space probe. The statuette, found in a 3rd Dynasty tomb, is part of an ancient artifact collection. It was engraved with symbols and signs that are unlike traditional Egyptian hieroglyphs and have not yet been deciphered. Many scientists and unidentified flying object researchers have begun to suggest that the statuette could be evidence of contact between the ancient Egyptians and extraterrestrial civilizations. According to some theories, the Sphinx from Mars was a kind of key or device for communicating with cosmic beings. Ancient texts found near the artifact spoke of gods from the sky who supposedly visited Earth in ancient times. Some theorize these gods gave the statuette to the pharaohs. The Sphinx from Mars still draws scientists and paranormal enthusiasts. Some consider it undeniable proof of the existence of extraterrestrial life, while skeptics claim that it is merely a coincidence and an interesting archaeological artifact. They decided to melt down the ancient artifact. A gold bracelet from Amenemhet's era, the 21st dynasty, circa 1000 before Christ, has vanished from Cairo's Egyptian Museum. The rare piece features lapis lazuli spherical beads. The Ministry of Antiquities reported the bracelet vanished from the restoration lab and turned the case over to the police. A photo of the artifact has been sent to all airports, ports, and land borders. A commission has been created to inspect and re-register all items that were kept in the laboratory. The disappearance was discovered while preparing the artifacts for an exhibition in Rome. The Grand Egyptian Museum in Giza, featuring the treasures of Tutankhamun, will open soon. Losing a valuable royal bracelet affects both security and the collection's protection system's reputation. Lapis lazuli symbolized power and protection in Egypt, which is ironic for something meant to be so well guarded. Some believe this artifact was already melted and sold as regular scrap. Europe's longest burial mound. Archaeologists in eastern Czechia have found the longest Neolithic burial mound in Europe, about 5,300 years old. The discovery was made in June during roadwork in the Hradec Králové area. The burial mound near Degolis, about 190 meters long and up to 15 meters wide, is from the funnel beaker culture. While the above-ground structure was lost to farming, archaeologists excavated its entrance, marked by a preserved pit and ditch. Inside the burial mound, 2 central graves were found, likely belonging to important individuals, along with 28 additional graves. These burials will undergo further laboratory analysis for precise dating. The first central burial included a pit with drainage channels and post holes, as well as a ceramic vessel for offerings. The second burial did not have an internal structure, but the body was laid on its left side. Archaeologists also found burial items such as ceramic objects, flint arrowheads, and blades. These findings provide valuable information about the burial practices and cultural traditions of that time. An alien from ancient Egypt. In the rock-cut tomb of Perer, archaeologists found something completely unexpected here: a tiny Phaeons Potikos, the Egyptian god protector, guardian of the path to the afterlife. It was found among bead amulets and the remains of 14 individuals, a rare occurrence in Anatolia. Adıyaman Museum publications call this the first recorded find here. The main point is clear. This isn't just a trinket, but a purposeful amulet. In Egypt, Potikos wards off evil, disease, and bites and protects people in dangerous situations. If such an amulet was found in the Hellenistic tomb of Commagena, it means the family accepted Egyptian protection as part of their ritual. Peri stood at the crossroads of Anatolia, Mesopotamia, and the Mediterranean, enabling trade and quick idea exchange. Though trade isn't the only factor, a foreign symbol was added to the local wires for the deceased, along with the usual beads and pendants. The word alien specifically caught my attention. The Egyptian amulet doesn't conflict with the Anatolian burial form. It completes it, creating a sense of a collected set of protection. The figurine illustrates how ancient societies readily adopted useful foreign symbols into their beliefs. The Risen Telamon. This unique atlas from the Temple of Zeus in the ancient city of Agrigento in Sicily is one of the most impressive examples of monumental sculpture from the 5th century before Christ. Built in the Doric style, the temple was among the largest of the ancient world, reflecting the power of Greek civilization. The telamons, which served as supports, had symbolic significance representing the titanic strength that holds up the sky or the immense weight of the architectural structure. These giant statues, about 7.5 meters tall, were impressive both in their detail and their size. One of the telamons was restored and placed in its original location, demonstrating the complexity of the engineering and artistic solutions of the ancient masters. But there are myths and mysteries surrounding the Atlantes. Some researchers believe that the images of the Titans could reflect ancient myths about the confrontation between gods and giants, and that their position in the temple symbolizes their subjugation. Some think this size and shape represented extraterrestrial beings the ancient inhabitants believed in. Artificial intelligence has found new geoglyphs. Archaeologists using artificial intelligence have found 303 new geoglyphs near the Nazca lines in Peru. These figures, showing parrots, cats, monkeys, killer whales, and decapitated heads, have nearly doubled the known drawings at this mysterious 2,000-year-old archaeological site. A team from Yamagata University in Japan, in collaboration with International Business Machines Research, found previously unknown geoglyphs that are significantly smaller in size than the giant geometric patterns created between the 200s and 700s AD. These figures, from 200 before Christ, offer new insights into the transition from the Paracas to the Nazca culture, which later made the famous drawings of the hummingbird, monkey, and whale. According to archaeologist Masato Sakai, the use of artificial intelligence made it possible to speed up and improve the process of mapping the geoglyphs. Using this approach, the team found 303 new drawings in just 6 months, much faster than the previous 100 years, when 430 geoglyphs were discovered. Artificial intelligence helps spot small relief geoglyphs that are hard to see unaided, and also to analyze huge amounts of data collected by drones to identify potential sites for new discoveries. Drones and artificial intelligence have become a quantum leap in the study of geoglyphs. Some of the new drawings are only 3 to 7 meters in size, so they went unnoticed with traditional research methods. Thuringia dagger. After heavy rains near Gütersleben in northern Thuringia, a bronze dagger surfaced in the soil. The finder left it and notified archaeologists. In the restoration workshop of Weimar, it was confirmed this is a Bronze Age dagger, about 3,500 years old. It's a type with a plate-shaped tang. The wide, flat base of the blade was attached to the handle with rivets, usually made of wood, horn, or bone. The technology for its time was quite complex, casting a bronze plate, forming the edge, polishing the base of the tang, and drilling holes for the rivets. On these items, rivet traces reveal how the handle was attached and if the blade could handle the load. Next comes alloy analysis, the proportion of tin and impurities, X-ray, and corrosion stabilization. If any organic remains have survived on the tang, it's possible to reconstruct the shape of the handle. The artifact was found without a grave or cultural layer. Most likely, the item was pushed to the surface by shifting karst soil after a heavy rain. This is a valuable find, offering direct evidence of craftsmanship and trade in central Germany during the Bronze Age. Such daggers could have been both working weapons, symbols of status, or offerings to the earth. The exact scenario will be determined by expert analysis. Unauthorized searching is prohibited in the region, and this kind of reporting about a find preserves both the object and the information about it. After the research, the dagger is planned to be displayed at the Elric Regional Museum. It will move from the field to a showcase with a clear history of its origin. A round man-made object was found at the bottom of the Sea of Galilee. In the depths of Lake Kinneret in Israel, a huge sphere about 50 meters in diameter and 4,000 years old was discovered. Who made it, when, and why is still a mystery. Researchers from Tel Aviv University and Ariel University are tirelessly trying to solve this mystery. They have even proposed a new hypothesis that might explain the origin of this mysterious object. After a detailed study using a sonar and analysis of natural deposits, scientists determined that this is a giant sphere made of large pieces of basalt, located at a depth of about 12 meters. Previously, scientists believed that it could be the biblical city of Miriam, the sister of the prophet Moses, who helped the Jews survive in the desert. But now researchers are suggesting a completely new idea. Remember the legend of Akkad, the great hunter with a magical bow who was killed by a jealous goddess. This legend says that the father searched for his son's body for a long time, found it, and buried it in the sea. Not just any sea, but the Galilean Sea. Now, scientists want to understand what is hidden inside this giant sphere. To do this, they plan to conduct underwater research using an ultrasound device. Egyptian tools. Traces of stone cutting were found in Egypt, which were discovered more than 100 years ago. Legendary pyramid researcher Sir William Flinders Petrie noticed these traces even on the sarcophagus in the Great Pyramid on the Giza Plateau. He suggested the sarcophagus was cut from granite with large 3-meter saws. Saw marks can also be found all over Egypt. For example, near the Great Pyramid, there are ruins of a temple. There, on the stone floor, numerous saw marks have been preserved. At the beginning of the 20th century, German archaeologists even deliberately put blocks with saw marks on public display during the restoration of the temple. Historians suggest that in ancient times the Egyptians used copper saws, and since copper is softer than granite and basalt, it is assumed that the Egyptians used quartz sand as an abrasive. La Palma vase. La Palma, one of Spain's Canary Islands in the Atlantic Ocean northwest of Africa, yielded a rare find on its northwest Tijarafe coast, a complete 13th to 15th century Benahorite ceramic vase discovered in a cave near human remains. This pottery was crafted by La Palma's indigenous people before the Spanish conquest. The discovery was made as part of the Proyecto Occidente project. Lourdes Boroso spotted the vessel during the survey. Francisco Cuamaño's team recorded the context and extracted the item carefully. Confirm funerary context. Vessel found in situ, not a mixed layer, very rare. Shape is typical of local tradition. A rounded bottom, a wide neck, and smooth walls without ornamentation. Such vessels were used both in everyday life and in rituals near the remains. It is correct to interpret it as part of the funerary set. Archaeologists can now analyze the clay and additives, check for content traces, and compare the shape with other island complexes. The main value is its intact state and precise context. This allows us to talk not about the abstract style of the Canarians, but about the specific practice, how exactly burials were arranged on La Palma in the late Middle Ages, and what was considered necessary to place next to the deceased. A city in the center of the Sahara. The Central Sahara in Niger is a territory that is practically inaccessible to people. Any tourist heading south from the Mediterranean coast has faced a huge number of obstacles. Giant dunes, exhausting heat, and drying winds create a landscape that is almost devoid of life. But those who venture into the depths of the Great Desert are in for a surprise. Surrounded by sandy canyons on a lonely plateau lie the ruins of the huge fortress city of Jado. These ruins, which are between 800 and 1,000 years old, remain a mystery. The city appeared when this part of the desert was much wetter and more fertile. Little is known about the people who lived here, and who built this city remains unknown. The fortress city of Jado is a Ksar, a typical North African fortified settlement. Such settlements usually consist of residential buildings constructed around a central food storage facility with a focus on defensive features. Ksars like Jado were built from palm trunks covered with an adobe mixture, hardened by the desert winds to the strength of metal. Jado stands out from most Khazars due to its massive size. The huge fortress towers over the desert, dwarfing the surrounding landscape. The Kanuri people who inhabit the desert in the center of the Sahara were the last known inhabitants of this place. They may have inherited the city from an older culture with no surviving records. The turning point that likely forced the Kanuri to leave Jado was probably the depletion of drinking water. As the green landscape turned into a desert, the water became brackish, and the environment became too harsh for survival. People inhabited the Jado Plateau for about 60,000 years, leaving rock paintings and other traces of their presence. Small livestock were raised here as early as 7,000 before Christ and cattle appeared, around 3,500 before Christ. The rock paintings found in the Air Mountains are about 5,500 to 4,500 years old. They depict a world with dense vegetation and an abundance of animals, completely unlike the modern landscape. Today, reaching the once great city is very difficult. This region is unstable, with tribes constantly fighting over scarce resources. The Kanuri now live in the neighboring desert village of Shirfa, but every year they return to the place of their ancestors to harvest dates. Oddly, the date palms still bear fruit. The Kanuri are descendants of the Kanyam civilization, which ruled Central Sahara from the 7th to 13th century AD. The empire's origins are mysterious, and it's unclear if Jado was founded during this time or earlier. If the Kanyam built Jado, excavations could reveal much about their culture. But if they inherited it, perhaps someday something else will be discovered, hidden from human eyes and guarded by the desert, so as not to reveal all its secrets. The mysterious Itbaraki. Turkic legends recall the Itbaraki, a people with human bodies and dog heads. In Oghuz Khan tales, they lived on the northwestern outskirts near Siberia. Their name derives from it, dog, and barak, a long-haired breed. They are described as having dark skin, mottled fur, and a dog's skull. Oghuz Khan once fled from them, went into exile, then returned and defeated them. He gave the conquered lands to his son Kipchak, ancestor of the Kipchaks. The name Kipchak is tied to a legend about being born in a hollow tree. To see why dog-headed people appear in these stories, remember that early Turks saw dogs as helpers and guides, not evil beings. There is a year of the dog in the 12-year cycle. In shamanic rituals, people mimicked its actions. In myths, the dog Barak carries the shaman upward, and in Altai tales, the dog protects the first people from Erlik, symbolizing a personal dog as both protection and spiritual link. In contrast, Itbaraki represent outsiders, similar canine traits, but as boundaries and threats, not protectors. This technique is clear. It defines our world's edge and reminds us of behavior rules abroad. There are similarities among neighbors too. Greek cynocephaly, Indian dog guardians, and European stories of northern tribes. The same pattern repeats. An unusual face indicates distance. Some may question if there was a real impression, like masks, totemic headdresses, or unfamiliar neighbors. But tradition doesn't require it. In legends, those on the other side were called Itbaraks. That's how they marked the boundary of their world. Wooden Stonehenge. Archaeologist Antonio Valero and his team discovered an ancient wooden Stonehenge dating back to 2800-2600 before Christ at the Perdigois complex. This 20-meter circular foundation is part of a large monumental landscape in the country's east. Such structures are found only in Central Europe and the British Isles. This wooden structure was the center where tribes gathered for ceremonial rituals and astronomical observations. It was built and used for 1,400 years, and it's the first structure of its kind on the Iberian Peninsula. Even its location shows that it served as a kind of ancient calendar, since the entrances to the halls are aligned with the solstices and equinoxes. Ancient tunnels have been found near Murmansk. Beneath Murmansk, Russia, lies a network of ancient tunnels. In winter, their entrance becomes a crystal ice kingdom. There are rumors that these catacombs stretch for dozens of kilometers, and the ceilings inside reach up to 12 meters high. Interestingly, these tunnels have been known for a long time and are even mentioned in 16th century texts. Legends say they belong to the ancient magical people called Chakli. They knew the earth's secrets, extracted precious stones, aided locals, and, as rumored, vanished underground rather than accept new ways. A relic boulder from the Ice Age. Brendan Dudas, a 31-year-old teacher from Indianapolis, tried to remove a stone blocking his lawn mowing. As he dug, he saw the stone didn't end, so he kept removing soil by bucket. He filmed the process on TikTok. The video went viral and got over 9 million views. The advice to call a crane turned out to be right. When lifted, it became clear the boulder weighed over 10.3 tons. Dudas estimated it was 10,000 to 15,000 years old from the last ice age. He left it as the centerpiece of his yard, surrounded by smaller stones, mulch, soil, and native plants. He says he wants to install lighting. In this way, the giant boulder from the Ice Age became a local landmark. In an interview with People, he admitted that working with the boulder forced him to renovate his entire property, and according to his neighbors, it also encouraged others to work on their own yards. Geologically, it's simple. A glacier brought the stone, and over time, soil gradually covered it. From a human perspective, it's a rare case when a problem turns into a reason to tidy up and leave a mark. An ancient astro-tomb. In Spain, where the sleeping giant resides, archaeologists found a 5,000-year-old treasure, and the sleeping giant is actually a huge rock in the Andalusia region. The treasure they found is an incredible stone tomb called Piedros Blancos, which translates as white stone. That sounds like the name of a superhero movie, doesn't it? And now archaeologists are sure that this tomb was built at the same time as the oldest megaliths in Antikythera. That's around 3000 before Christ. They even found ceramic offerings next to it. But what's even more amazing is that this tomb wasn't just built randomly. It was precisely aligned with the stars. Yes, just like in a science fiction movie. This means that ancient people used it not only as a tomb, but also as an observation platform to study the night sky. They knew where and when important astronomical events like solstices and equinoxes would occur. And most likely they held special rituals and celebrations at this site. These amazing discoveries show us how intelligent and inventive our ancestors were. They built incredible structures that served not only as shelters for the deceased, but also as tools for understanding the world around them. And here we are thousands of years later still learning from them thanks to these amazing discoveries. Giant fishing canals. Archaeologists made a sensational discovery. In Belize, on the territory of the modern Crooked Tree Reserve, 4,000-year-old fishing canals were discovered, created by the predecessors of the Maya civilization. Researchers used drone data and Google Earth images to find a complex network of earthen canals spanning several kilometers through marshes. These zigzag-shaped canals show people were already altering the landscape then. Archaeologists found jagged points, likely used to catch fish like catfish, and reservoirs for storing them. It is believed that the canals were built about 4,000 years ago by semi-sedentary peoples on the Yucatan coast and were used for more than 1,000 years. This coincides with the formative period, when the Maya began transitioning to settled agriculture and the formation of their unique culture. Major landscape changes, like these canals, came before the Maya temples, roads, and pyramids, forming the base of their cultural growth. These canals not only provided food, but also contributed to population growth and dietary diversity. Archaeologists believe that the knowledge and experience of these early peoples played an important role in the emergence of the great Maya civilization, connecting it to more ancient traditions. The skull isn't from our ancestor. In 1960, a skull was found embedded in the limestone wall of the Petrolona cave in northern Greece. Since then, its age and place in evolution have been the subject of debate. Estimates have ranged from 170 to 700,000 years, and interpretations from early Homo sapiens to an ancient European on an unusual evolutionary line. New research has narrowed the window. At least 277,000 years old, it closely resembles Homo heidelbergensis, Neanderthal ancestors from Europe's Middle Pleistocene. This is not a definitive answer. The dating depends on the layer and the method, and the skull itself has gone through a long history of research. But the picture is becoming clearer. At this time, early Neanderthal populations were already present in Europe, and the Petrolona specimen fits into this group. Based on the condition of the teeth, he is considered a young man. Another important point is that the discovery confirms the presence of ancient humans in the region, long before the classic Neanderthal sites, and before the appearance of anatomically modern humans in Europe. Petrolona serves as a testing ground where dating, morphology, and new scan results are compared. Currently, the conclusion is cautious. The discovery is rare, but its traits match those of European Neanderthal ancestors. Secret rooms. So what could be hidden inside the pyramids? There are many theories here, from religious artifacts and treasures to ancient scrolls full of knowledge. And some are even convinced that artifacts of cosmic gods could be hidden in the secret chambers of the Egyptian pyramids. Do you remember the story from the 90s? When a robot lowered into one of the shafts encountered mysterious doors? Greek and Roman scholars of antiquity were fascinated by the pyramid builders' craftsmanship. Medieval Arab chroniclers like Al-Masudi and Al-Idrisi wrote about wonders, gold, and possible mummies found inside. But not all scholars agree that the pyramids served only as tombs. Alternative history supporters suggest the Great Pyramid may have been a time capsule, preserving knowledge from an older civilization that influenced ancient Egypt. And there is an even more exotic theory from Christopher Dunn, who suggested that the Great Pyramid could have been nothing less than a power plant. And don't forget about the Hall of Records, the legendary ancient library where, according to some researchers, all the knowledge of the ancients is stored, knowledge that could shake the foundations of our understanding of the world. This was not created by humans. In 1995, divers first noticed strange circles with labyrinths and ridges on the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, decorated with seashells. At first, this was attributed to currents and mythical underwater architects. The real explanation for the discovery appeared only in 2011 when an underwater photographer captured the architect himself, white-spotted pufferfish, Torquay Jenner bomaculezus. The pattern was simple and interesting. The male spends days plowing sand with his pectoral and tail fins. The construction's diameter reaches 2 meters, with large ridges on the edges catching the current, while the fish sifts sand and deposits the finest material in the center. On top, there are neat decorations made of shells and pebbles. All this is not for beauty. The fine sand holds the eggs, the edges dampen the currents, and the shells help direct the water flow. Females select mates based on construction quality. Cleaner centers and smoother ridges increase spawning chances. After spawning, the circle acts as an incubator. As larvae emerge, the structure slowly dissolves. A year later, the cycle repeats nearby or in the same spot. It turns out that architecture and design here are not metaphors, but practical solutions. The shape is directly linked to the survival of the offspring. When ancient civilization traces are visible, it's often worth examining the behavior of living creatures more closely. The pufferfish doesn't build a city, but it solves an engineering problem and does it as well as any textbook. It selects materials, takes the current into account, protects the center, and attracts a mate. Sometimes that's what intelligence in nature looks like. No legends, just results. A mysterious substance in the coffin. Archaeologists made a shocking discovery in Xinjiang, northwest China. In an ancient coffin about 3,600 years old, where Bronze Age mummies were found, a mysterious substance was discovered on the neck of one of the women. Today, scientists are confident that this is the oldest cheese in the world. Researchers extracted DNA from this substance and found out that it is kefir cheese made from cows' and goats' milk. This discovery is important for understanding the origin of kefir and the evolution of probiotic bacteria. Xiao Meifu from the Chinese Academy of Sciences and colleagues analyzed the sample's bacteria, yeast, and proteins, enabling identification of the ancient cheese. Research shows that kefir cheese was important for people of that time. It may have been placed in the grave as part of burial customs or as food for the afterlife. Interestingly, two types of cheese were found in the coffin, one made from goat's milk and the other from cow's milk. Genetic studies have shown that the microorganisms in the cheese are similar to modern kefir strains found in East Asia and Tibet. This raises the question about the geographical origin of kefir. Kefir was once thought to originate only in the Caucasus, but new data indicate a possible second source in Xinjiang. These results show that kefir spread around the world in different ways, and its history is closely connected with the evolution of human culture. Jewelry made from fossilized shells. In the El Tesoro cave and Cueva del Hoyo de la Mina in southern Spain, beads made from fossilized marine mollusks were found. We're discussing scaphopods from ancient Malaga coastal deposits. The shells predate the people who wore them. Meanwhile, late Paleolithic and Neolithic gatherers almost exclusively chose Paradentulum inquale and Paradentulum sansculum, despite remains of about 20 other nearby species. Researchers described 37 fragments, some from the Magdalenian period 17,000 years ago, and others from the later Neolithic. Traces of processing are visible on the shells. They were cleaned, polished, and in some places covered with red ochre. In El Tesoro, individual fragments were inserted one into another, creating a simple clasp. Why these two species were chosen remains unclear. It may be due to their shape, shell strength, or color after polishing and ochre treatment. But the repeated choice at different sites shows a consistent practice, not a random selection. Parallels can be found further on as well. In Europe, there are Neanderthal finds of ancient seashells. And in South Africa, Homo sapiens found a trophy, a fossilized trilobite. So it turns out that jewelry made from fossils is not a rare whim, but a conscious choice of material and taste. Triangular shield. Archaeologists have uncovered a rare Roman watchtower 20 kilometers southeast of Sofia, Bulgaria's capital. Its base is an equilateral triangle with sides about 7 meters long. Coins of Emperor Caracalla date it to the late 2nd century AD. This is unusual for the Roman Empire. Most outposts were square or circular. The question arises, why a triangle? The tower's narrow tip faces the slope, so battering rams or stones slide off without damaging the wall. Inside, they found a stone well and remains of a wooden floor, rebuilt during the Byzantine period and the Second Bulgarian Empire in the 12th century. Similar forms are found only at the border with watchtowers. The Romans called such borderlines limes, meaning the entire system of ramparts, roads, and fortresses along the border. In Bulgaria, this is the earliest example of irregular planning. The engineers opted for a geometry that fit the mountainous terrain rather than a standard template. Today, the tower is part of the Ervich Museum complex. It shows that Roman builders were able to deviate from standards when local conditions required it. The lost text of the Bible. In Turkey, archaeologists found a unique 5th century amulet depicting King Solomon defeating the devil. On the bronze pendant, which is 1,600 years old, there is an ancient Greek inscription, Our Lord has defeated the devil. This artifact may relate to a lost biblical text describing Solomon's magical power. Sources say that from the 1st to 5th centuries, a text called the Testament of Solomon existed but was excluded from the canon. In this story, Archangel Michael gives Solomon a magic ring to control demons. The discovered amulet confirms that Solomon was seen not only as a wise king, but also as a fighter against evil. The artifact was found among the ruins of an ancient military structure in Adrianople, modern-day Edirne. The amulet likely belonged to a soldier who believed in Solomon's magical protection. The reverse side of the pendant is engraved with the names of the archangels Azrael, Israfil, Gabriel, and Michael. This represents protection from evil, blending religious traditions. Azrael is the angel of death in Judaism and Islam, and Israfil heralds the end of the world by blowing the trumpet on Judgment Day. Gabriel and Michael are widely revered in Christianity, the first as God's messenger, the second as a spiritual warrior. All these names enhance the protective meaning of the amulet. The amulet with Solomon is not just a historical find. It demonstrates how legends and religious traditions intertwine across different eras. The figure of Solomon unites 3 world religions, remaining a symbol of wisdom and strength. Indigo to Rome. A thin blue coating was found on the working edges of stone tools in the Sutsuan cave in the Caucasus. Analysis identified the chromophore indigotine. The complex is roughly 34,000 years old. Particles cluster where the tool is more worn, and starch grains were found nearby. Researchers from Canfascaria see this not as an accidental trace of soil, but as the intentional processing of plants not meant for food. Such raw materials are used to make dyes, infusions, and mordants. They are used to fix color on fibers and leather, treat threads and ropes, and test medicinal effects. These technologies typically vanish. The organic matter decays, leaving only microparticles on the stone. Tsutsuana leaves exactly this kind of trace and shows that the experiment was deliberate and repeatable. We are used to telling the story of the Paleolithic with flint and bones. This blue restores the simple chemistry of hands and plants to daily life. Leaves were crumpled, oxidized, and produced a stable color before Rome and medieval workshops. The purpose is still debated, but one thing is clear: the origins of indigo go much deeper than we thought. Atlantis at the bottom of the Caribbean Sea. June 5th, 8,500 years ago, the time is 1,300 hours. Suddenly, out of nowhere, an asteroid the size of a mountain crashes into the Earth at high speed. Boom, and its 5 billion tons heat the waters of the Atlantic to boiling. According to one scientist from Germany, this is exactly how Atlantis perished. The lost civilization, that they say, was flooded by waves as tall as Mount Everest. The disaster site is now known as the Bermuda Triangle. Scientists once believed Atlantis was in the Caribbean Sea near Bimini Island. They said the Atlanteans were so intelligent they could create fire crystals to generate energy. Apparently, one of these crystals exploded and caused the civilization's downfall. Skeptics, of course, dismiss this as nonsense. But what about the numerous underwater discoveries, such as strange pyramids and marble buildings? A giant jade dragon. Chinese archaeologists have discovered the largest jade dragon of the Hongshan Neolithic culture. The artifact was found in the Yuan Baoshan stone tomb, located in Eohan Banner, Inner Mongolia. The jade dragon measures 15.8 centimeters in length, 9.5 centimeters in width, and 3 centimeters in thickness, and is a unique find with no analogs in this region. The excavations also revealed architectural remains, fragments of human bones, tombs, hearths, and various artifacts, including jade and painted ceramic items. Among them were tripod cups and basins. Carbon-14 dating showed that the site belongs to the late Hongshan culture and was created more than 5,000 years ago. Correct the map. The African Union proposes moving away from Mercator maps in schools and official use. This projection stretches high latitudes and compresses areas near the equator, making Africa look smaller on a flat map than it actually is. This distorts the perception of the continent's scale in textbooks and media. Africa, no filter and speak up. Africa have joined the initiative with the Fix the Map campaign. They are promoting the Equal Earth 2018 projection and equal area projection, where countries' sizes are shown accurately. The idea is simple: make it the basic standard in school curricula, and then expand its use further. I'm not suggesting we ban the Mercator projection. It's useful for navigation, but equal area maps are better for education and statistics. In 2018, Google switched the desktop web version to a 3D globe view, but in the mobile app, Mercator is still the default. Stretched latitudes remain on most maps for this reason. When actual area is important, use equal area projections, such as Equal Earth. A Neolithic necklace made of 2,500 beads. Archaeologists have rebuilt an ancient necklace discovered in a child's grave. And it wasn't just any child, but our great-great-great, well, you get it, ancestor, who lived around 7,400 to 6,800 before Common Era in the Levant. Now you might think, so what? It's just a necklace. But here's the thing. This necklace was made up of more than 2,500 beads. Nothing like this had ever been found before at Neolithic sites in the Middle East. Here's how it happened. In the 1980s, not far from the famous Petra, in southern Jordan, archaeologists discovered a place called Baja. It's a prehistoric settlement, almost lost among the sandstone cliffs. It was a real little village engaged in growing wheat, gathering wild plants, and hunting. Archaeologists are sure that the inhabitants of Baja most often buried their loved ones outside the settlement. But sometimes graves were also made right inside it, under the floors of the houses. In one of these graves under the floor of an ancient dwelling, the remains of a child were discovered in 2018. He lived for about 8 years, and according to anthropologists, was a girl. She had a unique necklace around her neck, a whole collection of beads of different sizes, shapes, and colors, as well as a ring with many holes and a pendant. Analyses showed that turquoise, hematite, and calcite were used to make the beads, as well as seashells. And even 2 beads turned out to be amber, the oldest amber jewelry ever found. According to scientists, these beads once formed a huge multi-row necklace up to 6 meters long. Portrait of Viking. A 3-centimeter walrus tusk figurine found in 1796 in Kurgan, Norway, and held by the National Museum of Denmark, was re-examined. Dating to the late 10th century, this is likely a king piece from Nefatafel, the predecessor of chess. But the main thing is in the details. A straight parting, neat sideburns, a mustache raised above the lip, a goatee trimmed in the Spanish style and gathered into a single braid. Such detailed craftsmanship is rare for Viking archaeology. Here you can see exactly how they wore their hair and beard. Curator Peter Pins calls the item as close to a portrait as we can possibly get. The hair and beard are shown from all sides, not schematically, but with fine styling details. Similar figures usually focus on the beard, a sign of masculine strength and status, which is well understood from the sagas. Although this specimen's arms are damaged, its clear composition shows it's not an abstract warrior, but a specific ruler, identifiable by his hairstyle and beard. The material is significant: walrus ivory, sourced from the north and transported via trade routes to workshops. The carving and lacquering demonstrate skilled craftsmanship. The subject choice highlights the importance of power and appearance in public representation. A ring with a hologram. This unusual Roman ring was found in the tomb of noblewoman Ibuti and Kavarta, dating to the 1st century AD. Its standout feature is a hologram effect from a finely engraved portrait, likely of her son Titus Corvilius Gemellus, who died at 18. The ring probably symbolized the mother's grief and served as a tribute. The ring is made of gold, and the stone set in the bezel is perfectly polished and contains a miniature image. This portrait is unusual for its time. The facial details are so realistic they give a 3-dimensional effect, as if someone is looking out from the stone. Such a technique was incredibly complex, indicating the highest level of skill among ancient Roman jewelers. But the ring also raises mystical questions. Some believe that its owner might have used it as an amulet, connecting her with the spirit of her son, possibly to seek advice or protection. The mystery of the artifact is heightened by the fact that very few engravings with such an effect have been found, and it is still unclear how such a striking optical illusion was achieved. An ancient bakery in Armenia. Let me share an incredible discovery that feels like a fairy tale. Imagine an old bakery, the kind where they bake delicious rolls and bread. Now imagine that this bakery isn't on the corner of your street, but in Armenia. It's not 10, 50, or even 100 years old. It's 3,000 years old. Can you believe that it still has sacks of flour that were buried in the ground? Archaeologists discovered this bakery in Metsamor, Armenia, within the ruins of a large building with ovens that sadly burned down. But the most amazing thing is that there were still sacks of flour there. They looked like patches of ash, but scientists checked them and are now sure that it's actually flour. At first, the building was a public place, but then ovens were installed there, and it became a bakery where people baked bread from wheat flour. Later, there was a fire, and the building collapsed. Only the stone bases of the columns and charred fragments of wooden beams and roofing remained. Interestingly, the flour wasn't only for baking, people also used it for divination back then. This bakery might have held special meaning for people of that time. This remains a mystery for now, but we hope that scientists will be able to solve it. So friends, next time you eat freshly baked bread, remember that bakeries were an important part of our ancestors' lives 3,000 years ago. The deception of the century, which still exists to this day. In the middle of the 19th century, London was swept by a craze for medieval lead artifacts. Medallions, amulets, and coins with rough carvings, odd dates, and meaningless inscriptions appeared on the market. Many experts thought they were genuine. No forger today would be so careless. But they were mistaken. The authors were two small-time dealers, William Smith and Charles Ethan. In 1857, they set up a small-scale production on the banks of the Thames. Plaster molds, lead alloys, acid aging, and coating with river silt. They couldn't imitate inscriptions, so they wrote randomly, using Arabic numerals instead of Roman ones from the Middle Ages. Their crude work was seen as proof of authenticity. Leading antiquarians, including Charles Roach Smith, seriously claimed that a forger would have done a cleaner job. The scale of the deception was enormous, up to 10,000 items over several years. Doubts arose because of the sheer quantity. In 1858, Henry Sayer Cooming publicly announced the forgeries, but the dispute dragged on until the politician and antiquarian Charles Reed organized his own investigation. He convinced an accomplice to switch sides and got plaster molds, direct proof of the antiquity's origin. Then the story grew even more absurd. After exposure, Smith and Ethan kept working and improved their craft. Arrests were made on the priest's tip, suspects released for lack of evidence, and Smith vanished after his partner died. The duo's legacy endures. Their medieval works remain in museums and appear at online auctions, attracting those who see irregularity as authenticity. Considering the number of artifacts they made, it's hard to imagine how many are now kept in museums around the world, especially in private collections. After all, few people would want to admit that they once bought a metal fake for a huge amount of money. Mice ate the important message. Archaeologists sometimes make such amazing discoveries that it's hard to believe them. One of the most unusual discoveries was an ancient Greek letter that was eaten by mice. It was written on a wooden tablet and contained an order to kill the messenger. Researchers couldn't prove if this order was carried out. The letter, written between 257 and 248 before Christ, belonged to a man named Epharmostos. He sent it to his brother Zenon. The letter said, "Greetings. The letter you wrote to Menon about Calicon's money was eaten by mice. You would do me a favor if you write quickly so that Calicon is not delayed. Goodbye." The ancient Greeks often wrote letters on various topics: family stories, news, love messages, political views. Letters were an important means of communication and literary expression. The first mention of a letter in Greek literature appeared in Homer's Iliad, where Pred gives a tablet to Bellerophon. In the 6th century before Christ, Herodotus describes correspondence between King Amasis and the tyrant Polycrates. Letters were written with a reed pen and ink on papyrus, which was then rolled up and tied with a thread. Official documents were sealed so that only the recipient could open them. Besides papyrus, they used metal, wood, beeswax, clay tablets, limestone, and animal skins. The oldest Greek letters were written on lead tablets around the 5th century before Christ. A statue of Buddha in Egypt. As part of a joint American-Polish archaeological expedition, scientists made a remarkable discovery in Berenike, an ancient Egyptian port city from the Roman Empire era on the Red Sea. During the excavation, researchers found a marble statue of Buddha, almost a meter tall. Buddha is depicted holding his robe in one hand, while the other part of the statue is missing. The background of the statue is decorated with a mandorla, symbolizing the enlightened mind with rays of light depicted. In addition, there is a blooming lotus at the base. The artifact dates to the 1st or 2nd century AD. This finding testifies to commercial relations between Egypt and India in ancient times. Such connections may have begun as early as the 4th century before Christ. An observatory without a telescope. Before the invention of the telescope, astronomers used primitive instruments to observe the sky. One of the most outstanding astronomers was Tycho Brahe, a Danish scientist who achieved remarkably accurate results thanks to instruments such as the astrolabe and the armillary sphere. His data on the positions of planets and stars were much more accurate than any previous observations. Tycho Brahe created the first star catalog with over 1,000 stars, serving as a key reference for later scientists. In 1572, he observed a supernova, which disproved Aristotle's idea of the unchangeability of celestial objects. His collaboration with Johann Kepler led to the formulation of the 3 laws of planetary motion, which became the foundation for the work of Isaac Newton. In 1576, King Frederick II of Denmark gave Tycho the island of Hven, where he built the Uraniborg Observatory. It was the first observatory specifically built for astronomical observations. The observatory included living quarters, astronomical instruments, and an alchemical laboratory. Tycho's main motto, engraved in the library, read, "What a man is more important than what he is thought to be." After the death of Frederick II, Tycho lost support and was forced to leave Hven in 1597. After his death, King Christian IV ordered the observatory destroyed. Uraniborg and nearby Stirneborg have been partly restored and are now part of a museum about Tycho Brahe's life and legacy. The unconventional metal of Egypt. A new study found that between 2000 and 1650 before Christ, Egyptian craftsmen in the Middle Kingdom intentionally made arsenical bronze. Analysis of slags and melts showed traces of spece, an arsenic-rich additive. This isn't an accidental impurity from the ore, but a deliberate addition to make the alloy harder, keep the edge longer, and reduce wear. The analyses were carried out by a team from the Czech Academy of Sciences, together with colleagues in Cairo and France. The results showed that the composition of the bronze was controlled and replicated, which means that the workshops had stable supplies of raw materials and a clear technological process, rather than random attempts to make strong bronze. There is also a side conclusion for scientists. The lead that came into the smelting process together with space can mix isotopic indicators, which is why the origin of copper is overestimated in a number of studies. A lost legendary temple of Heracles was found off the coast of Spain. On the southwestern coast of the Iberian Peninsula, scientists from the University of Seville managed to find the ruins of the temple of Heracles Gaditanus, lost many centuries ago, a majestic structure that people came to worship from the farthest corners of the ancient world. Can you imagine how an ancient mythological hero can become the hero of modern research? That's exactly what happened with Heracles, who is known in Phoenician mythology as Melkart, the god and patron of sailors from the city of Tyre. Thanks to LiDAR and digital modeling, scientists were able to study the underwater world in detail while staying on land. Ricardo Bellison, one of the researchers from the University of Seville, suggested that the remains of the majestic temple might be hidden at the mouth of the shallow Cigno de Sancti Petri channel. Marble and bronze sculptures of Roman emperors have been found here, as well as figurines from the Phoenician period, many of which can be seen today in the Museum of Cadiz. Scientists were able to identify a rectangular area measuring 300 by 150 meters, where the ruins of the temple itself might be hidden. Ritual table in Tava tape. Italian and Azerbaijani archaeologists found a 3,500-year-old ritual table in the ancient Tava Tepe settlement in Azerbaijan. This place is located near the borders of Armenia, Georgia, in Azerbaijan. During the excavations, a round adobe structure was found. The building includes a kitchen area and a ritual table. Between 1500 and 750 before Christ, during the late Bronze and early Iron Ages, nomadic peoples likely used Tavatape as a resting place before traveling through the mountains. Archaeologists also found a ritual table with 8 recesses and many ceramic containers, bowls, vessels made of black-fired pottery, and long flat stones for mixing food. A thick layer of ash and clay tokens with fingerprints, possibly used for food rations, has been preserved in the kitchen corner. At the entrance, there were originally wooden columns, and a thatched roof covered the entire complex, which was about 15 meters in diameter. Outside, animal bones and discarded pottery were found, human figurines placed in sacrificial pits, and the fact that the structure was sealed along with all the pottery indicate its ceremonial nature. Urns of Amazonia. A fallen tree deep in the Brazilian Amazon revealed pottery with rounded edges beneath its roots. Archaeologists found 7 burial urns, 2 unusually large containing human bones. Fish and turtle bones were nearby. The urns were just 40 centimeters below the surface, likely under old houses. No ceramic lids remain. They were likely covered with organic material that decayed. The site is Lake Cachila in Fonteboa, where artificial islands were built on high floodplains centuries ago. This was engineering, not whim. Soil mixed with ceramic fragments was added to build a platform strong enough for a house and resistant to floods. The urns were found on such a platform. The ceramics show an unexpected mix of techniques, plus a rare green clay known from only a few places in the region. Why fish and turtles were placed in urns with people remains unclear. It may have been ritual, a household practice, or symbolized a water connection. These are still just hypotheses, but the site's layout, artificial islands, and repeated vessel shapes suggest a regular practice rather than a single event. The urns are now in the Tefe laboratory. There will be dating based on organic material and isotopes and comparisons of the clay. Perhaps the tradition will be given a name. The most mysterious people of Europe. Archaeologists found a Roman-era altar dedicated to the mysterious deity Larache in a monastery on Mount Ariondi, northern Spain. Dated to the 1st century AD, the find is important for studying the Vascones' religious practices, one of Europe's most mysterious peoples. This altar is one of 4 known altars to Larache, but the only one found during the excavations. The artifact was discovered at the bottom of a well in the Dunastebe monastery. There is an inscription on the altar, Valeria Vitella, fulfilling her vow to Larache, free and deserved. Mount Ariondi, settled since Roman times, lies in the Gulina River Valley near Pamplona. Its strategic location made this place important throughout history, as evidenced by the remains of Roman infrastructure and a later monastery dedicated to Saint Stephen. Little is known about Laraha. Only 3 other altars testify to the worship of this deity. The new discovery expands the known geographical spread of the cult of Laraha, a statue of a mongoose from ancient Egypt. This artifact is both a charming find and holds mystical significance. In ancient Egyptian mythology, the mongoose was linked to divine forces of light and protection. In Heliopolis, center of Ra's sun cult, the mongoose represented light's victory over darkness. Myths say Ra, as a mongoose, battled Apophis, the chaos serpent threatening the solar bark. This bronze statue with a solar disk represents solar energy and immortality. Artifacts like this were placed in temples or used in rituals for protection. Some researchers suggest the mongoose, known for hunting snakes, also symbolized overcoming challenges and defeating both spiritual and physical enemies. Many similar figurines have been found in tombs, where they likely served as amulets to help the souls of the deceased overcome dangers in the afterlife. Mongooses, once sacred in Egyptian symbolism, highlight the deep ties between nature, religion, and the spiritual philosophy of this ancient city. The Sailor's Stone. In Surrey's Hinhay wasteland near Devil's Cauldron Amphitheater, an old tombstone stands without a name. This is a monument to an unknown sailor killed in September of 1786 on the hillside. Not everyone knows the story, but it is recorded in detail. The sailor was traveling from London to his ship in Portsmouth, stopped at the Red Lion Inn in Thursley, met three sailors, James Marshall, Michael Casey, and Edward Lonigan, and left with them toward Hindhead. Then came the robbery and murder. The body was dumped in a ravine, nearly decapitated. The criminals were soon identified after trying to sell the sailors' belongings at the Sun Tavern in Rake. 6 months later, they were tried in Kingston and hanged on April 7, 1787, at the crime scene on a triple gallows. This public execution was intended as a warning to others. The victim's identity is still unknown. Sometimes the name Edward Hardman, born in 1752 in London, is mentioned, but there is no evidence. The locals raised money for a plaque and erected a monument. The sailor's grave itself is in the local cemetery, but the headstone was left by the roadside so that travelers would remember the story. The story often appears in local history and 19th century literature. The place has become a local legend. Bimini Road. Have you ever heard of Atlantis? In the mid-20th century, Prophet Edgar Casey predicted the remains of this mythical city would be found near Bimini in 1968 or 1969. And what do you think? In 1968, off the coast of Paradise Point, researchers discovered 700 meters of neatly stacked limestone blocks, which are now called the Bimini Road. Archaeologist David Zink claims that these are megaliths assembled by humans. Gavin Menzies, author of the book 1421, The Year China Discovered America, believes that these are traces of a shipwreck of Chinese sailors, while other scientists say that this is simply a natural formation. So who is right? A giant Viking burial site. Archaeologists made a rare discovery in Osum village east of Hordense, Denmark. They discovered more than 50 well-preserved Viking skeletons, which is rare for such burial sites. In addition to the skeletons, 5 cremation burials were found, which further increases the value of the discovery. According to archaeologist Michael Borre Lunjo, such discoveries open up new opportunities for studying the health, diet, and origins of people from that time. It may be possible to find out whether they were related. The burial site, about 2,000 square meters, dates to the 9th-10th centuries during Gorma and Tura's reign. This is one of the largest Viking burial sites found on the island of Funen. Some graves indicate the high status of the buried. For example, the burial of a noblewoman who was laid to rest in a wagon with items such as a necklace of glass beads, a key, and a knife with silver trim. At her feet was a wooden chest, the contents of which remain a mystery. A bronze brooch and a piece of rock crystal, probably brought from Norway, were also found in the burials. These findings confirmed that the Vikings had extensive trade connections. A gift from the fairies. At Dunvegan Castle on the Isle of Skye, the MacLeod clan displays the Ambra Tasid, a magical banner, as a cloth scrap under glass. It resembles tattered silk with a yellow-brown background, red dots, and once had golden crosses. It's about 45 centimeters long. In the 20th century, it was sealed in an airtight case to preserve it. Its origin is debated. English archaeologist Alan Wace suggested it could be Syrian or Greek silk, possibly a relic. The clan leader said it was given to his ancestor by fairies. There are 3 origin stories. In one, after the crusade and following a hermit's advice, the ancestor defeated a thunder spirit's daughter and made a banner and staff from her belt and spear. In the second version, a fairy took the crying infant heir from the tower at night with a silk handkerchief. The next morning, her singing was heard in the hall. In the third version, the chief married a fairy, and when they parted on the ferry bridge, she gave him a silk cloth and said, "It will give the clan 3 victories, no more." The banner was credited with military luck, healing livestock, ensuring a good harvest, and attracting herring to the lake near Dongvegan. But, according to legend, the power works only 3 times. After that, the cloth disappears and the clan will be left without protection. It is believed that it was unfurled twice in the 14th and 15th centuries, and one chance remains. During the World War II, there was a rumor that Churchill asked MacLeod to raise the banner for the Allies, but the clan refused. They were saving their last chance. The banner remains in a sealed display case positioned between the theory of distant silk and the family's belief it was a fairy gift. To a museum curator, it's a rare, historically complex fabric. For the clan, it is an insurance policy that cannot be wasted. In both cases, this silk still serves its purpose, preserving memory and defining what people believe for those with a three-chance flag above their hearth. Traces of a lost culture. Venezuelan archaeologists have discovered 20 new sites with rock paintings that are thousands of years old. These drawings in Canema National Park are from an unknown culture. The drawings made with red pigment include geometric motifs such as dots, crosses, stars, and lines, as well as stylized images of leaves and human figures. Some images are carved in stone as petroglyphs. The reason for making these drawings is still unknown. They may have been linked to birth, illness, nature's renewal, or hunting. Rock art sites were probably important because of their location, just as the locations of churches and mosques are important to us today. The exact age of the drawings is unknown, but they're estimated to be around 4,000 years old due to similarities with others in Brazil. However, scientists believe that the Venezuelan findings may be older. Canaima National Park is a vast area with forests and parks the size of Belgium. One of its most famous attractions is Angel Falls, the highest waterfall in the world. Researchers believe the park may have been the origin of this mysterious culture, which later spread across the Amazon, Guyana, and southern Colombia, where similar rock paintings exist. The full-figured woman from Saliagos. The full-figured woman from Saliagos is a unique testament to the ancient culture that flourished on the Cycladic Islands during the Neolithic era. Her discovery has revealed many secrets about the lifestyle, religious practices, and artistic traditions of this ancient society. Saliagos, despite its small size, played a key role in the early history of the Aegean region. In addition to its role as a connecting isthmus between Antiparos and Paros, it was a center of production and trade, as evidenced by the finds of obsidian tools that exceeded local needs. The ceramic vases discovered on the island provide insight into the design and style of the era. Their patterns and shapes reflect a creative approach that may have had religious or cultural significance for the inhabitants of Saliagos. Overall, the discoveries on Saliagos offer invaluable information about the ancient world of the Aegean region. Algerian Atlantis. Tapasa's underwater area is now studied as closely as its shore ruins. Divers and marine archaeologists document amphorae, cisterns, storage niches, and notably a rock-carved pier resembling an engineered structure. Together, these remains reveal a port active from at least the 4th century before Christ to the 3rd century AD. Moreover, the nature of the finds suggests regular trade rather than occasional dumping into the sea. United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization urges expanding water area protection since surf erosion threatens the cultural layer. And without official status, the site is exposed to heavy diving. We risk losing what we've already found. The team is recovering artifacts discovered in the spring and examining the structure's dark outlines with new equipment. Only multiple dives and deposit analysis will give the final answer. Before us is either a sunken city that was taken by the water or the lower tier of an ancient harbor that gradually settled beneath the waves. What fascinates me isn't the word Atlantis, but the chance to explore the mechanics of a real port that thrived through the Phoenician, Roman, and Byzantine eras. If we manage to document the layout of the docks and cisterns, we will finally understand what the coastal hub looked like, one that the sources are silent about, but the sea still preserves. Armor from the era of Troy. Archaeologists in the South Orava region of Czechia found bronze items, including a rare 3,200-year-old breastplate. The plate measures 40 by 30 centimeters and covered an elite warrior's chest. The surface features raised solar discs and a triangular ornament, symbols of power and protection. The team from the Brno Museum scanned the fragments with a 3D laser, then filled in the missing parts with a digital layer. The model showed the armor weighed about 1 kilogram, with edges bent inward to protect the wearer. Inside, traces of organic material suggest a leather lining. The breastplate was found with a spearhead, sickle, and several bronze rods. Such a set is rarely accidental. The researcher believes that the items were hidden as a ritual offering, a thank you to the gods for a harvest or a victory. This is only the second such discovery in the Czech Republic. The last was over 50 years ago. Bronze weapons then were crafted individually. Artisans made a wax mold, poured in copper and tin alloy, and polish the blade to a mirror finish. Each piece of armor showcases the workshop's signature and proves Central Europe's advanced craftsmanship before the Romans arrived. The border of Rome. At the Schaubright site near Delbruck, archaeologists uncovered a multi-layered settlement, hundreds of post holes, 2 identifiable houses, 2 semi-dugouts, 2 wells, and a separate cremation burial. About 750 artifacts were found in the cultural layer, with 600 made of metal organic material was well preserved, including wood, a piece of leather, and even an insect wing. A beam with visible tool marks was later reused to build a well, offering rare detail about daily practices. The key item is a 4th or 5th century buckle from a Roman military belt. It doesn't make the site Roman, but it does show direct contact with Roman material culture. Mercenaries serving the empire may have lived here, or it may have been a community tied to the border market or garrison. The site's layout and items suggest several phases in its history. Before Roman influence, during active contact, and in the migration era, as connections shifted and homes and wells were rebuilt. This is not a horde or a temporary camp, but a permanent settlement. A Roman belt buckle, a reused beam, and preserved organic materials show a typical economic cycle, repairing buildings, digging wells, and recycling materials. Roman items were used for practical purposes when they were at hand and suited the task. Altai mummy? Altai Pazyryk mounts. The ice preserved the skin of someone about 2,500 years old, with nearly faded tattoos visible. They were re-examined. Scientists reviewed the images under varied lighting, analyzed the pigment, and replicated the techniques on models. Something unexpected was discovered. The tattoo was not done by a single hand. The right arm shows finely detailed deer and big cats, clearly done by a master. The simpler, uneven geometry on the left is likely the work of an apprentice. This is the first convincing case where several artists are believed to have worked on the same body. The pigment is regular soot, and the tools are a single needle for outlining and a comb, several needles on a bar for quickly making dots and shading. This combination explains the depth and texture of the lines under a microscope. Mummification incisions in some areas cut through the designs, so they weren't preserved for ritual purposes. The tattoos were part of everyday life, a sign of status, group affiliation, or personal symbols. Skin lines reveal Iron Age community structure. There are masters, apprentices, and a need for complex body ornamentation valued in life, not after death. Art and relics with cosmic features. For centuries, humanity has created art and relics that sometimes depict figures with unusual cosmic features. These images have sparked discussions about possible contact with extraterrestrial civilizations. One of the most well-known examples is the ancient depictions in the Indian Vedas, where flying machines known as vimanas are described. Although most researchers believe that they are mythological or symbolic images, some claim that this is evidence of ancient technology or even extraterrestrial intervention. In numerous ancient cultures from Egypt to Central America, statues and reliefs have been found depicting figures with unusual headgear, resembling helmets, or with other cosmic attributes. These images are often associated with gods or great rulers who could descend from the heavens. Another example is the art of the ancient Sumerians. Some of these images depict beings that, according to some theorists, could be interpreted as extraterrestrial. Most archaeologists and art historians argue these images stem from religious beliefs, mythology, or symbolic art, not contact with extraterrestrial civilizations. Whatever the true meaning of these images may be, they serve as a reminder of the richness and depth of human imagination and our desire to understand and interpret the unknown around us. The world's most dangerous manuscript. Maria Curie was a famous scientist, experimenter, outstanding chemist, and researcher of radioactivity who received 2 Nobel Prizes, one in 1903 in physics and the second in 1911 in chemistry. But why are her notebooks considered dangerous? The answer lies not in the knowledge they contain. Marie Curie and her husband Pierre Curie discovered polonium and radium and developed ways to isolate radioactive isotopes. When scientists discovered radium, They had no idea about its harmful effects on the body, so they did not take any protective measures. They kept samples of the substance in their pockets and stored them carelessly. Maria Curie died in 1934 from aplastic anemia, a blood disorder caused by radiation. Many scientists who worked with her also died from leukemia and other radiation-related diseases. During her work in the laboratory, Curie received a huge dose of radiation and became radioactive herself. After her death, she was buried in a lead coffin that blocks radiation. Her personal belongings, including her notebooks, were given to the National Library of France, where they are kept in lead boxes because they remain radioactive. Today, access to Maria Curie's notebook is restricted. To view her manuscripts, you need to sign a waiver at the National Library of France and get permission. Viewing the records takes place in a special room away from the other reading rooms in the library. The visitor must wear protective clothing and use a dosimeter. Experts have determined that the radiation dose for a person in protective clothing working with Curie's notebooks is minimal. Even with regular contact throughout the year, the maximum dose will be about 10 microsieverts per hour. For comparison, during a flight at an altitude of 10 kilometers, a person receives 5 microsieverts per hour. Thus, a 2-hour flight from Berlin to Barcelona gives the same radiation dose as a year of working with Curie's notebooks. Curie's notebooks remain the most dangerous among known manuscripts due to their radioactivity. Reading them without protective clothing is extremely dangerous. Marie Curie's personal belongings cannot be touched without protection for about another 1,500 years, since the half-life of radium-226 is 1,600 years. Bird shamans. In Peru's Tangucha Valley, an inner courtyard wall of an ancient temple was excavated. A 6-meter double-sided fresco with bas-relief friezes and vivid blue, yellow, red, and black polychromy. A giant predatory bird with outstretched wings is at the center, and diamond motifs on its head link the compositions north and south. The dating is 2,000 to 1,000 years before Christ, which means the early stage of the formation of coastal communities in Peru. The subjects are simple: fish, nets, stars, mythological creatures. In one part, 3 humanoid figures slowly turn into birds. Archaeologists interpret this as a ritual transition shown in initiation ceremonies. In this region, psychoactive plants were used for this purpose, primarily the San Pedro cactus. The relief, color, and repeated patterns serve as the ceremony's rhythm, not decoration. By then, community roles were already emerging. Priests and priestesses know medicinal plants, watched the sky, and applied this knowledge in daily life and rituals. Researchers see the composition as evidence of a ritual. Pattern repetition may set rhythm, and bird images symbolize transition. It is likely that this is not just decoration, but an element of a ceremony, which was used repeatedly: a black granite slab. A black granite slab. Heracleion, once a major port in ancient Egypt, sank underwater following a devastating 1st century before Christ earthquake. Its existence was long considered a myth until the French archaeologist Frank Godiot discovered the lost city in the early 2000s in Abu Qir Bay, near the modern coast of Egypt. The most remarkable discovery was a large black granite slab inscribed with the city's name and its ties to the ancient Egyptian gods. Archaeologists also discovered dozens of sunken ships, well-preserved statues, temples, and many artifacts like jewelry, coins, and personal belongings. Excavations are ongoing, and each discovered object sheds light on the role of Heracleion as a major center of trade and religious life. The city, submerged in the depths of the sea, remains a reminder of how natural disasters can forever change the course of history. An ivory figurine. In Follyfels Cave, Germany, archaeologists discovered an ivory fragment carved with remarkable precision. This mysterious piece appears to be part of an artifact found 20 years ago. So, what is it? A large horse's head, or perhaps a bear or a lion? Professor Conrad from the University of Tübingen and his team suggest that the figurine was carved about 35,000 years ago during the Ice Age, and now it consists of 5 fragments found at different times. The current find, a piece of ivory measuring 4 by 2.5 by half a centimeter, has been identified as the right shoulder and rib cage of the animal. This prompted the scientists to search for the remaining parts of the figurine among the many ivory artifacts. And they found another part that can't be directly connected to the rest of the body. Maybe it's part of the left front leg. What do you think? The oldest cake. In the Meyer necropolis, archaeologists found something that's hard to call bread. It's a pair of wheat flatbreads about 10 centimeters in diameter, stacked like a book, and according to analysis, filled with milk, honey, and sesame. The cake is about 4,200 years old. According to Guinness records, it's the oldest known intact cake. The preservation secret was in the technology, dough baked between two copper molds over fire. As the pastry cooled, a vacuum formed, making it stick to the metal and stay airtight. That's how it was found, intact, without mold or decay, as if someone had just removed the molds. The cake was lying in the tomb of Pepi the Middle, vizier under Pepi II. The Egyptians placed not only bread and beer in tombs, but also food for the journey to Duat, a symbol of rebirth and a supply for the road. It all makes sense here. A recipe with milk and honey, expensive molds, careful arrangement. This isn't cuisine for taste, it's a deliberate creation for the afterlife service, made to withstand time, and it truly did. Would you like to taste this cake? Write in the comments below the video. We're just starting to unravel these stories. If you found it interesting, support us with a like and suggest your topic for next time. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, everyone.